Yes, people, welcome back to the show. If you haven't done so already, or if you don't know already, I'm doing a all-time Arsenal series. If you haven't done so, go and check out the best ever Arsenal 11 that I think has graced the pitch. I believe personally, you have to go with people you've seen live, so that's what I've gone with. I've gone with an Arsenal best 11, and you guessed it, I'm now going to do an Arsenal worst 11. If I'm honest with you, there's been some shockers, hasn't there, that played for Arsenal, but I've put together 11 that I feel just literally cannot be beat in terms of how poor they were. Some of which people will think is a little harsh. Sometimes things just don't work out in football. Other times, it has just been absolute shambolic. And in some cases, I think Arsene Wenger and other managers have been to blame for either selecting them, buying them, or sticking with them for so long. So, without further ado, smash a like on this video. Subscribe if you can. Help me to 7K. I'm on the way to it, people. So by the time I get back to Premier League and Arsenal and all the Premier League content, I'd like to be near or nearabouts with 7K. So if you can help me with that, that would be amazing. Like, subscribe. It's absolutely free. All you need to do is click two buttons. Be amazing. Let's get to it. I have to start with my formation. I've gone 4-4-2 with this one. I did a 4-3-3 in the previous video, and if you haven't checked out that one, then please make sure that you do. I want you to leave comments under these as well to let you know who your Arsenal worst 11 will be, and of course, your best Arsenal 11 on the best Arsenal video as well. Without further ado, my goalkeeper. Um, we've had some shockers, you know. We've had some really poor goalkeepers at Arsenal. I can think of some fantastic ones, but I can also think of some shocking ones. But one that really sticks in my mind, and we had him in goal for so many years in the Emirates era, is this guy, Manuel Almunia. Some good penalty saves, I'll give him that. But my God, what a poor goalkeeper. I never understood why he was in goal for so long for Arsenal. Arsene Wenger seemed to like him. We've had some shockers. I always thought Fabianski was better. I still think that Vito Manone is better than this guy. We had Viviano, who didn't even kick a ball, and I'd rather have seen him. Wojciech Szczesny was better than him, but he kept playing. He kept playing, and I never understood why. He was a goalkeeper that, for whatever reason, Arsene Wenger just didn't seem to want to budge out the door. Um, After the keepers such as Jens Lehmann, David Seaman, Alex Meninga, John Lukic, I grew up with them. Then I got this guy, the most frustrating goalkeeper. Used to make absolute clangers, never really had any command of his area, flapped up crosses, and never thought he was going to do anything other than save penalties. And I need more from our goalkeeper than just one that can save penalties. So for me, Manuel Almunia walks in. We had some shockers over the years: Vince Bartram, Rami Shaban, Vormas. Who else have we had in goal that was pretty shocking? I can't think other than this guy, Manuel Almunia. Congratulations, you're in my 1 to 11 of the worst Arsenal 11. Right back, we've had some pretty poor right backs in our time. I liked Carl Jenkinson because he was one of us, but he was never really a fantastic right back. Neither was Justin Hoyt. We've had some of the youngsters come through in that position. Nico Yanaris never really did anything at Arsenal. Oleg Luzny was someone that people would say straight away, yep, go for him. He was poor. But I've gone for someone I actually quite liked, but for wrong reasons. He used to come on, get sent off, come on, get sent off, and just kick people. But he was actually quite a poor footballer. So he's one. It's this guy, Nelson Vivas. Nelson Vivas was bought by Arsene Wenger in around 2000, 2001, and never really got into the first team for more than a couple of games. He used to be brought on at times for 10, 15 minutes, and all he would do would kick players. Now, sometimes people would say that's you need a player like that, but he would honestly get sent off. I don't know how many times he did get sent off. Maybe someone can tell me in the chat. Maybe it isn't as many as I think because I was quite young at the time. But it just seemed that everything he did was a yellow card or a red card. He never really got into the swing of it. Believe it or not, he went to Inter Milan. That was amazing because for me, for a player of this ilk to go to Inter Milan, you'd like to think he'd done something fantastic. But he didn't really, and he'll always remain in my eyes as a right back that never really made it at Arsenal. So I've gone for him at right back. I'm going to tell you a story about Nelson Vivas, though. At Highbury, years and years and years ago, he actually exited the wrong door of the stadium and fell into a trap. That trap was thousands and thousands of Arsenal fans. And I'll tell you what, he stood there and he signed autographs for every single one of them. Back then, you didn't take pictures on phones. Um, Unless, of course, you had your big camera with you. But he literally signed autographs to everyone. And I thought, you know what? Big up yourselves, Nelson Vivas. But unfortunately, mate, I couldn't think of a right back worse than you. It was between yourself and Oleg Luzhny and, of course, Justin Hoyt. But I went for you just because I felt that you couldn't really hold down a first team place like the other two could. So that's why I've gone for you. Left back. A few options here. Andre Santos come to mind. I didn't go with him because he scored 2 or 3 absolute screamers. And going forward, I didn't think was the issue. But the player I've gone with is probably the worst footballer I've seen in a long time wearing an Arsenal shirt. One of the worst left backs there has been. And we only just about got rid of him, I think, last season. This guy was absolutely shambolic. I've seen some bad players in my time, but I've never seen someone who can't pass a football. I remember during the pandemic, he passed the ball to Son for him to score. That was very nice of him. Could have took Tottenham out of the Champions League only 2 or 3 weeks ago, but completely missed a free header, pretty much an open goal, and he missed the whole target. This guy sucks. I'm sorry. He's absolutely shocking. I can't believe he's still a footballer. Going forwards, people said he was great. I never really see him set any goals up, really. I never see him score any screamers. He certainly never used to do anything defensively that was any good. What actually was he good at? I don't really know. A poor signing, a free transfer, 150k a week was he on, or something mad, 125k a week. Really poor signing, and was Germany defender of the league in the league apparently, or left back in the league. And wow, they must have had no left backs that year in Germany because he is shocking. So I've gone with Kolasinac. There was never really anything about his attitude that I liked. His mentality was of bad blood. I think he needed to go along with Mesut Ozil, and the pair of them seemed to just be very toxic around the dressing room, and everything about that guy just he was never for me, never my favorite player, and one that I wanted to see the back of. I was frustrated when we signed Tierney and kept him. I would have kept Nacho Monreal and sold Kolasinac, but unfortunately nobody wanted to pay him 125k a week, so we were stuck with him. Thank you for that, Arsene. Much appreciated. My 2 centre halves, wow. I mean, we could have picked about 5 or 6 that begin with the surname starting with the letter S. Senderos, I thought, was a player that was okay in parts, but never really held down a long-term position at the club. Sylvestre was too old for me to consider because he was just done. Giroud, I think, did a good job for us at times, to be honest. Pascal Sigan was an invincible. Igor Stefanovs played a few games in 2001, 2002, really poor. We've had some shockers, haven't we? Oh my God, we've had some shockers, trust me. But the 2 I've gone with are the ones that drove me absolutely insane. This player I'm going to put up was absolutely abysmal. I can't believe that we signed him. I've never seen anything like it in my life. He was embarrassingly bad. Sebastian Scalacci. We signed him, and everyone thought he'd be an experienced head to come in alongside Lauren Koscielny and Thomas Vermaelen at the time. But my God, he was a shambles. I've never seen a defender so inconsistently poor, so incompetent, so bad. It was just shocking, really. A poor signing, somebody who just looked like he was a fish out of water on the football pitch. Certainly in the art of defending, I don't think there was anything good that come from him. And he was literally there for a couple of years before Arsene Wenger realised it was a poor signing, and that Vermaelen, Mertesacker and Koscielny were then brought in because he was so bad. So I had to go with Sebastian Scalacci. I thought he was worse than Sigan, worse than Senderos, worse than Giroud, worse than Mikel Silvestre. So really, I have to go with him. He's been absolutely terrible for Arsenal. So it's a player that, for me, definitely came to mind as soon as I mentioned putting together a worst Arsenal 11. So who do I partner him with? Well, it's difficult, isn't it? Because I've already mentioned so many names. But believe it or not, I haven't actually mentioned the guy I'm going to go alongside him with, because this guy had his hand up all game long, blaming everybody but himself. Skodran Mustafi. Congratulations, Godran. You have made the worst Arsenal 11. The most arrogant guy, someone who thought he was so much better than he actually was. Somebody that won a World Cup, so everyone thought was going to be a good signing. £35 million from Valencia. Gary Neville could not believe it. He said he wouldn't have paid £35 for him when he was at Valencia. They were howling. We paid 35 million for someone because his team won the World Cup. It's absolutely ludicrous. This guy, I cannot tell you how many mistakes he made. He is not a good defender. I remember him heading it on to Aguero in the Wembley League Cup final against Man City. I remember him making ridiculous mistakes, last-ditch tackles that took people out, the amount of penalties this guy gave away, the amount of bad passes he gave away, the times he got sent off, the liability issues, the circumstances that made him the one to blame. And just the frustrating thing that he would be the one playing everybody onside and he'd have his hand up calling offside. No, mate, you're the one playing everybody onside. I can't imagine how many times I wouldn't like to think back to how much stress and anxiety this man caused me on the football pitch. So Mustafi, you're going alongside Scalacci and you're the centre back pairing. These two are just a joke. I can't believe they played for Arsenal. Um, for me, it's criminal that he is, I think, our fourth or fifth highest, most expensive player that we've signed in the history of the club. It's just a shambles to even have that as a record is so, so poor. So that's my back four and my goalkeeper. Let's move into midfield. Now, these two midfielders, I thought of a few. I didn't think Ramondi was as bad as what people make out. He did have a few bad games, fair play. Inamoto was a player I looked at, but didn't really play too many games. I thought of Kim Kallstrom because Kim Kallstrom broke his back when he came to Arsenal, but I blame Arsene Wenger for that signing, not so much him. He did score a penalty and he played a few good games, but let's be honest, that was a poor signing and was never one that should have been happening. We've had some other shockers before. Amari Biscoff was one that we bought. Wow, what a terrible player he was. Absolutely shocking over the years. But I've gone for two players that I thought were one of which came to the club with a lot of hype, the other that just stayed in the team for way too long. The one that comes to the club with a lot of hype was this guy. John Jensen, Denmark won the international tournament in 92 or 94? No, 94, wasn't it? And we signed him and everyone went, wow, we've got John Jensen. What a terrible signing that was. Absolutely shocking. I'm sure he was a definite footballer, but it didn't happen at Arsenal for him. Let me tell you that. I remember the song I saw John Jensen score when he scored at Highbury against QPR, and we still lost the game 2 or 3-1. I can't remember. Absolutely shocking. Terrible footballer for Arsenal, never really made it. And one that I think when people have played alongside him will probably say, what a nice guy, what a great footballer, but it never happened for him in an Arsenal shirt. That's for sure. When I look at who's going to play alongside him, it's quite difficult for me, but this guy for me played way too many games under Arsene Wenger. I never saw anything about him that was any good. He looked like a promising player when he came on the scene. And I'm, of course, talking about Denilson. Now, when we signed Denilson, everybody thought we were signing the Brazilian Denilson that won the won the World Cup, should I say, in 2002. No, we got the youngster. In 2006, 2007, we signed him as, I think, an 18-year-old. And he looked promising. He looked like he had some nice touches. He could pass the football. And he had that Brazilian name to him. So everyone was excited. And yeah, I could tell quite quickly he was not going to be a Cesc Fabregas. When he came through and he replaced Flamini, we sold Flamini to AC Milan, and I remember thinking, who are we buying then? We didn't buy anybody. We were hoping Diaby would stay fit, and then we had this guy. We had this guy for way too long. Excuse me, partnering Cesc Fabregas in midfield. It really did. It really did make him look better than he was when Fabregas was alongside him due to the quality of Cesc. But my God, this guy was poor. There were some really, really bad games that he had. And when he left Arsenal, he was still fairly young and he never did anything. He just went back to Brazil. Nobody wanted him. That's how poor he actually was. Diaby, I thought, was an unbelievably good player and one that I look at and think, wow, you could have been something. But Denilson, no, I'm sorry, mate. It weren't for me. It's not something I look at as a player and go, oh, wow, he could have been so good. I just thought he was an average player. And he just seemed to be playing week in, week out. And Arsene Wenger loved him. And I don't know what it was about him, but he seemed to really appreciate him as a footballer for whatever reason. But it was one that I just went with. And I felt I couldn't really pick anybody ahead of him because the amount of games that he played for us that was poor. Kim Kallstrom never really played enough for us. Likewise, Eddie McGoldrick and players like that, Inamoto, players that crossed my mind. I thought, I can't really pick anybody but this guy. So for me, the Nilsson partners John Jensen in midfield. Moving on to the wide men now. I don't think we've had many bad wide players. If you think over the years, the amount of quality we have had, we've been really quite lucky. I remember growing up with Anders Limpar and Merson and Parler, and then it went into the later hybrid days of the Overmars and players like that. Then we went into Pires and Lundberg and Reyes and Alexander Hleb, moving to the Emirates with Thomas Rosicky and Theo Walcott, Andreas Sharven, Samir Nasri. And then, of course, we've got now some of the youngsters such as Saka and Smith Rowe. But, wow, there's been a couple. Javinho was one that I did think about. But to be fair, he scored a few goals for Arsenal. I didn't want to be too harsh on him. But there's two definitely. One when I was very young that I thought was absolutely dreadful as a footballer. And that's this guy, Glenn Helder. Glenn Helder was poor. Glenn Helder came from, I think, the Dutch league, and Dennis Bergkamp was his mate. I think that's the only reason he came, if I'm honest with you. I might have got that wrong because I was young at the time, but he was not a good footballer. He was, I think, a left winger, and I don't think he did anything on the ball. I think I looked at him and thought, you're no good. And then I looked at him again and thought, yep, you're still no good. And I looked at him again and thought, why are you still here? Couldn't really do anything on the ball. Don't remember him scoring any fantastic goals, if I'm honest. And don't really remember doing much in an Arsenal shirt. I felt that he deserved to be in the worst 11 team ahead of Javinho. So that's why I've gone for him. I thought he was really, really poor. And not someone that I can tell you much about. Not really sure where he went after Arsenal. I think he went back to Holland and didn't really do much as a footballer. And it didn't really work out for him. I'm sure he had talent as a youngster, but it certainly didn't work out for him at Arsenal. And he ended up leaving a couple of seasons after, I believe. So who else makes it on the other side? That's my left winger. Who's my right winger? I believe this was quite simple. The best right winger that Arsenal have had is this guy. Wow, only feels like we just got rid of him, doesn't it? £220,000 a week, a 3-year contract at the age of 32. That was a Raul Sanlehi and Husfami deal as far as I'm concerned. And to be fair, probably one of the reasons they fell out of everyone, because this was not a good signing. Big up to Willian, in fact. Great player at Chelsea. Fantastic for club and country at Chelsea. But when he did come to Arsenal, it didn't work out for him. He couldn't click. He couldn't connect. He scored one goal towards the end of his Arsenal career against West Brom at the end of the season. And in his first Arsenal game, he set up 3 against Fulham. But it never worked for him. He was poor. He never really interjected with the players. He never got on with them from what I can work out. There was no telepathy with him. It just looked like a fish out of water and wasn't going to work for him. Actually playing still in the Premier League now for Fulham, went over to Brazil. And to be fair, just cut his contract and didn't even want pay. And he just wanted to go and play football. And it didn't work out for him. So fair play. It's a player I look at and I've always liked over the years. But he's got to go down as one of the worst Arsenal signings ever. He's been absolutely shambolic for them. And I'm glad that he's gone. I really am glad that he's gone. That leads me to my 2 centre forwards. Now, there are players we've had that have been pretty poor, that have kicked 1 or 2 balls for Arsenal and haven't really been able to get into the swing of it. But I don't want to pick those. I want to pick players that have played for Arsenal. And there are 2 that stand out like a sore thumb, that were played in Arsenal seasons where we were actually trying to compete. Both of these, believe it or not, have won trophies with Arsenal, but it was because of the players that surrounded them. I don't think that you can sit there and say that either of these players don't deserve to be in the worst ever Arsenal 11. Step forward, Francis Jeffers. Wow. When we signed him for £10 million, or was it £8 million from Everton, he had the under 21 England record. He was an absolute goal machine. He looked superb at Everton and a player that had a lot about him. But when he came to Arsenal, it was hard for him to get into the team. Why? We had Henry, we had Bergkamp, we had Wiltord, we had Carnu. Oh my God. Francis Jeffers was absolutely awful for Arsenal. He scored a couple of goals. He scored a couple of headers, I can remember. But he was poor. It never worked out for him. I think he ended up going down to the Championship to try and fight for his career again. I think it might have been at Charlton. And then I think he went to non-league football. It was a signing that everybody was excited about. He was young, he was English, he was scoring goals internationally for the under-21s, scoring goals for Everton, Premier League proven. I remember signing him and Richard Wright and thinking, we've got two English lads here. One of them looks like a really good goalkeeper from Ipswich. The other one looks like a really good centre forward from Everton. And oh my, how poor was Francis Jeffers? To be fair, I never minded him. It wasn't a player I looked at and thought, oh wow, like, you know, I don't like this player. But I have to be real. The only reason is because of the other players around him. We had Pires, we had Lundberg, we had Vieira, we had Parla, we had Henry, we had Bergkamp, Carnu, Viltord. Yeah, we didn't need Jeffers. So luckily, he wasn't one that played all the time and that we relied on too much. He wasn't an Eddie Nketiah where we're relying on him now for the next 3 months. Francis Jeffers, unfortunately, it didn't work out for him, and he makes my 1-11. So who else have I gone for? Who's my last player up top? Who have I gone for alongside Francis Jeffers? Probably one of the reasons that we won the FA Cup in 2014. This guy, Yaya Sanogo. Yaya Sanogo was probably one of the main reasons why we won the FA Cup final in 2014. We brought him on and he changed the game. Him and Giroud and Ramsey winning that game against Hull City. Fair play to you. I also saw Yaya Sanogo score 4 goals in the Emirates Cup and fell over when he was celebrating, I think, his hat-trick. But that was pretty much all he did. And I saw him starting games against Dortmund, against Bayern Munich once. I think he started against Liverpool and Man United in big games. He really got given a chance by Arsene Wenger, and it wasn't a player that I ever really looked at and thought, wow. His record over in Auxerre, I think it was, in France, was superb. He scored unbelievable amount of goals. But he was never going to make it in an Arsenal shirt. And when he left, I thought, let's see what he does now. I think he went over into the Championship. I think it was Middlesbrough or somewhere like that. Never did anything. Literally could not score. He was so poor. And again, Arsene Wenger kept playing him. He kept playing him. And I remember Yaya Sanogo just missing chances, doing nothing, trying to hold the ball up, bouncing off of him, trying to, with his first touch, bouncing off of his first touch. Just a terrible footballer. He weren't a good player. And, you know, I don't know. I saw our 1-11 the other day that had Baptista in it. I was like, come on. Like, Yaya Sanogo and Jeffers are worse than Baptista. Baptista scored some goals for us that was good. I can't put him in. Christopher Ray, I can't put him in. People would talk about Diawara, cover Diawara, like that from old. I can't put him in. For me, it has to be Jeffers and Sanogo up top. I can't really think of anybody else that would deserve to be in this worst Arsenal 11. So I'm going to have to go with them. So there you have it, people. My worst ever Arsenal 11 is as follows. Manuel Almunia in goal. At right back, Nelson Vivas. At left back, Sead Kolasinac. My 2 centre-halves are Mustafi and Scalacci. My 2 centre midfielders are Jon Jensen and Denilson. My 2 wingers on the right is Willian and on the left is Glenn Helder. And then up top is Francis Jeffers and Yaya Sanogo. Let me know what your worst 11 is. Let me know. Let me know in the comments. Who do you think I've missed out? Do you think there's any shockers in there? Do you think there's any players you actually rated in that 11 and thought, damn, that's really harsh? Let me know. I'll be massively appreciative if you could do that. And then lastly, guys, I want to say a huge thank you. For those of you that are liking and subscribing and listening to my content, it means the absolute world to me. Whether you listen to me on DR Sports, AFTV, whether you listen to me on Lee Judge's TV, on here, whether you go to other channels like Matisse's channel on London's Club Carnage and watch me, whether you go to Harry Simu's channel, on Tom Canty's channel, on the Highbury Squad, on the Gooner Talk, wherever you go and listen to me, I really want to say thank you. It means the world to me. Thank you so much. Please smash a like and subscribe on this video, though, because it really will help me. I'm trying to get to 7K as quickly as possible. I'm actually trying to get to 10K, but let's go to 7 first. I'm at around 6.5 nearly, so I really want to get to 7 as soon as possible. If you can do 2 things for me, like and subscribe, it's absolutely free. Hit the notification bell so you know when I'm next on, and I'm going to be doing another one of these Arsenal series for you so that you can catch up with the best 11, tonight's worst 11. We got a couple of surprises for you coming up as well for some all-time Arsenal 11s. Thank you so much for listening, guys. I'm going to leave it there. We're going to be out of here. I'm looking forward to club football. I can't wait for it to come back. I'm looking forward to watching the Arsenal and getting back with the boys. So make sure you like and subscribe. I'll see you next time. And as always, up the Arsenal, people. Take care.